Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. We're off a couple of days, and now we are back in action. Lots to talk about in the world of the NBA. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane, over on Instagram at Trevor Lane NBA. Joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA on the Twitter machine. Keith, how are you doing? How's everything going? I know you've got family in town, lots of stuff going on in your world right now.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's good to see everybody. We've been doing some of the Disney stuff and just doing family time and running around, and we've got soccer and school on top of it, and when I can, I'm watching basketball. So it's been good. It's we're get a few more days of it, and then we'll get back to normal next Monday on Halloween night is when everything resettles for the Smith family, and we'll be back to regular life. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, as much as I want to get into NBA today, and we certainly need to, but I need to mention this. I, over the two films, have been lukewarm on Ant-Man. Not bad, but not like, oh my gosh, I need to rewatch this 15 times or however.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've watched Ragnarok like 50 times at this point. Ant-Man Quantumania, I am a little bit fired up now after seeing that trailer. And I know that that's the point of the trailer, is to get people excited.
Sure.
Mission accomplished. I am very excited now about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I was there anyway because I think Kang's setting up to be like the new big bad.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, after they introduced a variant of Kang and Loki, this one's obviously the more, I guess, comics traditional version. But yeah, I'm super excited for that. And yeah, this one sounds like we're finally. It seems like phase 4 had been introducing new characters, and now we're gonna get Wakanda Forever coming out here just a couple weeks, which is crazy.
Yep.
We'll get into that. And then did you see the Guardians Christmas special?
I did
too, as well. That's just gonna be funny. So
yes.
I'm very much looking forward to that too. So yeah, man, we get some Marvel stuff coming right down the line here, very, very, very rapidly. So I'm very excited for that.
My daughter was extremely disappointed when she found out that Thor was not in the Guardians Christmas special. She had lost a lot of interest in watching it. She is actually dressing up as Thor, as the Jane Foster Thor for Halloween. She's all in on this, but yeah, she was supremely disappointed that Thor will not be part of the Guardians Christmas special. I am still excited to see that one.
Our daughter is going to be Lady Loki.
Oh, there you go.
She her horns, and she has a variant sweatshirt she's going to wear and hang out. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, let's dive into some NBA news. Unfortunately, a negative to start out. Kawhi Leonard already dealing with knee issues. Now, there's reports out there that he wanted to play, but the Clippers opted not to risk anything, which this early in the season, why risk it? But still, that's not a good sign.
Nope.
We knew there was going to be load management with Kawhi Leonard and all that, but they start the season bringing him off the bench. The minutes have been managed, and now they're sitting him out of games entirely. And we're on the opening lap of the NBA marathon, and we're already seeing this pop up.
Yeah, they're in one of those 2-game sets where they're playing 2 in a row in Oklahoma City, and he's not going to play in either one of them, which is really not great. It's they're saying it's knee stiffness. This is after he came off the bench and all those kind of things. So we'll see if what this means. I know the knee is let's call it the newer problem. The quad is has been explained multiple times. It's a condition. It's not an injury with this quad. So there's just going to be times when he's just going to need shut down because of the quad, but the torn ACL on top of it. It's my guess is without being a doctor and without having seen anything for him, it's probably all somewhat connected with all of it. And yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not even the end of October and we've already got him sitting out games. And I know some people are like, oh, it's just load management. This is not back-to-back games this early. And if it was, they wouldn't be saying knee stiffness. They'd be, just saying, injury return from injury management or something. So yeah, it's definitely concerning. Paul George out too. Yeah. Marcus Morris out with personal issues. So, some of that depth being stretched a little bit for the Clippers right now.
And we talked about how ridiculous their wing depth is. And now, this early in the season, they weren't planning on having to rely on it. And yet here we are where they've had to. So not good in the early going. Let's jump over to your Boston Celtics. Grant Williams suspended one game
Mhm.
for bumping an official. You and I were talking before we came on here about kind of this altercation, how it all went down. Uh, what's your take from the Celtics perspective on what's happened here with Grant Williams? And is this one game suspension warranted?
Yeah, 100% warranted. Very consistent with the NBA too. If you bump into an official in any kind of complaining or threatening manner, this was certainly not threatening. Williams. Well, what happened was he got called for a block, and in my opinion, it was the right call. But he had been complaining all game long. Jason Tatum had gotten a technical earlier. There were definitely some calls that went against the Celtics. By no means is that the reason they lost. The Bulls just kicked their tails. So that part I'm not going to say had anything to do with Boston losing the game. But yeah, Williams didn't like the call. He did. I don't know if he ended up doing a somersault or not after it. Then he got up, and as he was like sprinting to the bench or whatever to say his piece to whoever was going to listen, he bumped into the referee. The press release also says there was inappropriate language directed towards the referee too. So my guess is it's a combo deal there, and that got him suspended for one game. The league's been very consistent with this over the years. If you make contact with an official, you're going to get tossed, and you're probably going to be out another game as well. So it is what it is. It's definitely a big loss. The Celtics are thin up front right now. It's Al Horford and then a bunch of question marks. Noah Vonleh's been playing a lot, but hit or miss with him, pretty mixed. Blake Griffin not really ready to go yet. Grant has been playing and generally playing well, but yeah, they're gonna have to figure something out against a pretty big Cleveland team here on Friday night.
I was going to say I just looked ahead at who their next matchup is. There's some teams where it would be a bit easier to get away with not
Sure.
having Grant Williams for. I don't think Cleveland is one of those
Nope.
teams, especially when you've got, and not to say, Grant Williams is going to stop Evan Mobley or something like that,
No.
but just having size against Cleveland is important. What is this just going to mean more minutes for Blake Griffin, I would guess?
Yeah, probably they'll probably go small, even more kind of, sometimes the best way to combat a big team is make them defend you on
Hmm.
the other end. That was kind of always Boston's approach with Philadelphia was like, hey, Philly's going to be really big. All right, then we'll go small and you're going to have to defend us too. So that would be my guess is that's what they do, but we'll see. I'm not entirely sure what Joe Mazzulla, who also got ejected from that Bulls game as well on Friday night. He got tossed very quickly. What had happened was Jason Tatum got a technical earlier in the game. Tatum did one of these like deals where
Yeah.
you wave your arm, and he got a technical for it. Second time he's got one. The first time was in preseason for a movement like that, and then Nick Vucevic got called for a foul call. He didn't wave his arm, but he grabbed the ball and then he jumped up in the air and jumped up and down right next to the referee. And they were like, come on, like if you're going to give a T for one, let's be consistent and
Right.
give two. But my guess is Missoula had something more that he maybe added to those comments. I don't think it was probably just a be consistent because I don't think you get thrown out for that. But yeah, so he was tossed and then Grant shortly thereafter. And they asked him, after game, asked Joe Missoula, did you talk to Grant Williams? And he said, well, yeah. He goes, but who am I to say anything? I had gotten thrown out minutes earlier. So, just a bump in the road, but it wasn't a good game. There was a lot of things that have been a little bit masked over maybe in the first three games for the Celtics because they won. Really kind of came to light some bad defense and those kind of things. So, we'll see. But three days of practice time, 3 days to correct some stuff, and they've still got today and tomorrow to figure out how to play without Williams before Friday. So, hopefully they'll have something ready to go.
All right, let's talk a little bit about a transaction or a trio of transactions. The Knicks picked up options on a number of their players, including Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly. Was this to me? These all are kind of no
Yeah.
brainers, and I know there's mixed reviews on Obi Toppin and everything, but like you pick these up and you
Mhm.
move forward if you're the Knicks. This I don't think there was a lot of debate on whether or not they should do this, but just noteworthy that they did.
Yeah, you should not be declining third and fourth year options unless the player is hurt and they can't play, or unless they have like absolutely proven they are terrible and have no business being near court. All of these guys, obviously, completely not in either one of those camps. They are both, or all three rather, are all very good players. Fourth-year options for Quickly and Toppin, third-year option for Grimes. Again, reminder, these options get picked up basically a year in advance for this. And the deadline is Monday, October 31st. That's the last day to pick up one of these. Otherwise, the players will all become free agents next year. There's a handful. If you search my Twitter timeline, you can see I put a list together of all the guys we were still waiting on. There was about 20-ish or so that we're still waiting on seeing. My guess is probably almost all of them will be picked up because it's just what you do. You pick it up and then you deal with it later.
Unless your name is Smith,
yes,
Jaden Smith, and you are with the Phoenix Suns. I still don't understand what they were.
And then you get traded to the Pacers.
That's right.
And it worked out a little bit once upon a time when the Warriors declined Kevon Looney's and then re-signed him. And just so since we're on it, if you decline the option, you can still re-sign the player, but you can only re-sign them for a contract starting at the value of the declined option amount. That exists too if the player gets traded. So in Jalen Smith's case, he got traded from the Suns to the Pacers. Pacers re-signed him this summer, but it was only to a contract that could start at the amount of the declined option. There's no way you can get around, all right, this guy, Paolo Banchero, right? He's already great. There's no way you could say, all right, we're going to decline year 3
and then
pay him, sign you to a max deal. That's not allowed. It's the team is capped at paying the player the declined amount of his option. Now, if they leave and they go to another team, free game. They can pay them anything they want up to the max as long as they have the ability to do so. And that was, occasionally a little bit of a concern. And there was a thought, Smith broke out with the Pacers of, somebody might be able to pay him a little bit more. But that's all part of why we rarely see rookie scale options declined.
Yeah, I mean that rule is in place because I can imagine that if you had a breakout rookie, that agent would be pushing teams to decline that option. And hey, pay my guy, keep him happy. Otherwise, we might want to look at a trade and things. It would get messy. And so having that in there, it kind of protects you against something like that happening.
Yep, for sure.
All right. A guy who I haven't talked nearly enough about him at this point. I am muttering the name Russell Westbrook in my sleep, I believe, at this point. But
I like to imagine you're like walking down the aisle at the grocery store and you're just like, Russ, and pull-up jumper and 2-for-1 and 47.1 million. And people are like, the little girl's like, Mommy, that man's talking about Russell Westbrook again in the milk aisle.
That is happening when I see a 2-for-1 sale at the store. Yeah, it definitely triggers me. Into it. Yes,
make a big mess of the display.
Exactly. The Lucky Charms go flying. I'm throwing things and all that. It's not a good situation.
If anything's selling for $4.71, you're like, get it out of here, get out of my face.
I can't see it. It's haunting me. That's what's happening. Which is
you can't even take stuff for free, right? Because of the zero.
Anymore. That's right. They tell me it's for free. I said no. I will pay you. I'm giving you $1 for this.
Right, I think this bit has rust its course.
Oh,
no. That was bad.
Look, the Lakers. So we just to update everybody on where the Lakers are at right now. There have been rumors about a Josh Richardson trade, potentially something brewing there. But I think the bigger story here is like we've been hearing since July. Spurs, Pacers, Hornets. These are the teams they could trade Russell Westbrook. Mm-hmm. And those have popped up again. Terry Rozier's name popped up again a few days ago from Shams Charania. Of course, we know they almost did the deal to get Miles Turner and Buddy Hield right before Media Day, like the night before Media Day. There have been discussions apparently with the Spurs for Josh Richardson. The bigger thing, though, is a lot of NBA teams aren't ready to make a trade right now. Mm-hmm. They want the dust to settle. That's why we keep hearing, 20, 25 games, something like that, because not only do the Lakers want to figure out what's what and see if, some teams decide, hey, we suddenly want to tank and go get Victor Wembanyama or try to. Teams around the NBA want the dust to settle and figure out what they've really got on their roster or don't have before they make this kind of a move. So a lot of people saying, oh my gosh, just trade him now. Those opportunities aren't necessarily there. Now, Woj has mentioned that the only things that might kind of be out there are all the things that they didn't want to do in the summer. Mm-hmm. So for now, it's kind of the status quo.
Yeah, I mean, it's also important to know roughly 200-ish players, almost half the league, can't be traded anyway because those guys are they just signed contracts over the summer. So the vast majority of those players can't be traded until December 15th. That's when the early trade window really kind of opens officially. There'll be a handful that are January 15th if they re-signed with their teams and get contracts that are big enough. And then the guys who signed very late, like for example, someone like Dennis Schroeder who signed very late. It's later before those guys can be traded. But it is, I mean, we're still, month and a half away from that major early trade window opening up. So that's part of it too, right? Is, well, let's really see. Spurs and Pacers, I had someone ask me, like, why do they keep coming up in the Westbrook trades? Well, it's really simple. They both have $30 million of cap space. So whether it's Russ going direct to them in a 2-team trade, they send something to the Lakers, or it's a multi-team trade where they're the third team in. By the time we get to trade season, if they've not done something major, they're going to be everybody's favorite team to throw in every trade because they're sitting on 30 million in cap space. So they're very easy to drop them in and make things work because you don't need to match salary. Like someone said when this report posted, I had someone tweet at me and say, how can they trade Richardson for Westbrook? There's like $30 million difference in salary because the Spurs are sitting on $30 million in cap space. So, and I did not run the math, to be fair. They may need to throw in something small in that trade. I saw too, some people said maybe Richardson and McDermott, could be what makes sense there with that. But yeah, it's, I think there's 2 reasons why we're hearing so much Westbrook stuff. One is it's the Lakers, right? So they're one of the more popular teams. So there's just a lot around the Lakers all the time. The other thing I think that we see happen in this situation with the Lakers is I think we're seeing there being the sense of they got to do something.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the only thing they can do, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I keep saying this, whether it be on radio or to other people, there's no other meaningful trade the Lakers can make right now that makes sense, right? Because they're not going to trade Anthony Davis. Like, just get rid of that. And then basically the rest of the roster can't be traded yet. Almost all of them, they've got to hang on to December 15th. And even then, they're all on minimum contracts for the most part, except for like Lonnie Walker. Patrick Beverly, I guess, you could flip him in a deal. But for the most part, it's Westbrook or anything if you want to make a meaningful move. But all that said, I think there is a little bit of, I mean, there's definitely smoke, right? Because no one is coming out and saying directly, like, nope, all these reports are not true. We're not looking to trade them or anything like that. Because I think they know, like, that'd be so disingenuous and so stupid that we'd all, right? You and I would immediately record a show and be like, they think we're morons. Right? Like, of course you're trying to trade them. But yeah, and now we're hearing, right? We heard, was it last night or this morning? Westbrook may not play in the next game because of the hamstring issue. There's reporting, I don't know who it was, but it is, more likely they reduce his role before they, trade him immediately and those kind of things. I think they're kind of going to say, let's be a little patient here. Let's see what it looks like maybe without him playing as much, and then we can see where we go. And that could turn into, all right, you know what, just go home. Go home. We'll figure it out and go from there. And either we trade you or we let your contract expire this summer. But yeah, I know you saw I did a mini thread on Twitter where I was just like, the math is $30 million in space this summer, or trade Russ right now for a trade that does it really fix you? Probably makes you better, but is it gonna, how much better, right? Is it gonna be playing better? Is it gonna be fighting for home court advantage better? I don't think there's a deal that's all of a sudden it's like title contender better. I just don't think that necessarily exists. But yeah, and then it's, as it has been for months, 1 pick, 2 picks, protect the first pick. Like, where do we go with that?
One of my keys has been if they're going to do a trade, they need to make sure it's not a trade where you're getting players who you're getting the last of their NBA value.
Yes.
Because if you do that, and 2 years from now, LeBron and AD decide, you know what, I'm going to retire or whatever, I'm going somewhere else, you need pieces that you can pivot from. And if you get Mike Conley, you can't flip him for any further value. You're getting the last of his value in the NBA. So, and he's probably a negative value right now anyway.
And you're probably not going to have the assets to attach in a trade because you're probably going to use them in the initial trade anyway.
So let me ask you, philosophically, do you think the Lakers are better if Russell Westbrook is not playing?
Yes, not playing right now. Yes, I'm not going to say they need to rush into a trade, but I would probably say, hey, let's just chill on right now too. If it's oh your hamstrings bugging you, okay, let's sit a week. Let's really let that get healthy, and then we'll readdress and go from there. Now that's kind of like right, like oh, there's a hole in my roof, so I'll just throw I'll throw a tarp over it. Like
Mhm.
that's very Florida people. Like oh man, that's so Florida of you. But like it doesn't really fix anything, right? The hole in your roof's still there, so you still got to fix something. So maybe you're just kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit. But yeah, I struggle to see the way he's playing how you're a better team with him on the floor because there were times last year where it was like there's no other you
Yeah.
have very few guys. It's like who's even going to dribble the ball up the floor, right? like this year you have other guys. Like there are other guys that you could play. And yeah, in my opinion, I think they are better without him playing.
Well, so then you can improve this team without giving up any picks.
Yeah,
You can improve this
yeah.
team just by saying, "Hey, we're just not going to put Russell Westbrook into the game." Now, again, I'm not saying that improves them significantly, but
No, sure.
it's got to be a factor. If they're able to find some success without Russ in the game, then okay, maybe you've got something there that you don't feel quite that urgency. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. We'll see. I think people are going to overreact in either direction to
Hmm.
tonight's Nuggets game. If
Yep.
they somehow if they get a win, and right now they're not favored to win this game, but if they get a win, people will be screaming, "See, it was all Russ's fault. All they needed was Russ not to play." And
Yep.
if it goes the other way and they lose, then all the Russ fans are going to be running around screaming their heads off, saying, "Russ isn't the problem. It's LeBron. It's AD. See, this is proof." I don't. We live in a wild
And,
world. That's for
and then I think that you're gonna have the handful of rational people who are like, "Oh, I guess we're not really good either way." So
sure.
and that's where I
We're going to
am.
get our
Like,
voices drowned out by all those screaming because
yeah, of
that's
course.
what
Oh, yeah,
happens.
absolutely. I mean, that's just how it's supposed to work. I guess for me, I do really look at it and say, right. And I said this in that Twitter thread: you make the Turner Healed trade. How much better are you? Better. Don't get me wrong. Like, I definitely
Mhm.
think you're better, but how much better? Are you sixth seed? Are you fourth seed? I think if you think like making that trade, if you're Rob Palinka in the front office and the ownership group, and you're like, all right, I think that puts us in the mix for home court advantage. And I realize they're 0-3 and whatever. Like nothing's. I mean, this is not the NFL where being 0-3 is like, well, it's season over, can't
Right. Yeah.
call it. Um, you still have plenty of time. If you really say making that trade or making a trade for Hayward and Rozier and giving up a pick or two picks or whatever, if you really feel like, hey, that's the deal, then do it. If you feel like that's really going to put us in the mix for home court advantage, great. But if you're basically saying, yeah, it probably gets us in the play in, well, I mean, I get it. They don't have their picks, so there's no incentive to tank here. But like,
Mhm.
I'm not throwing good money after bad to chase the play in. Like
Right.
it just doesn't make sense to me. Like that to me is where it kind of all falls apart. Because I've seen people like, you can't waste LeBron season.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, if that's going to be the end result anyway, like now I've wasted LeBron season and I've given up my draft picks. Like now where am I?
That's been an interesting dynamic. And again, not to stay on this topic too long. I know I can go long
Oh
on
yeah,
Lakers stuff, but
sure.
but that's been an interesting dynamic within Lakers fandom is that you do have some Lakers fans who are saying, "Don't waste LeBron's final season," but you are one of his final seasons, right? However many seasons he has left.
Yeah,
Um,
somewhere between 5 and 100.
right. Who knows at
It
this
just
point?
feels like,
But
yeah,
don't waste this season from LeBron. But you also have, and this is, I think, what a lot of people don't recognize enough: the people who are Lakers fans because they are LeBron fans. Well, they don't. Of course, they want those picks traded. They don't care at all about those
sure.
picks,
Hmm.
right? Because those picks have no value. The value is zero for them because the only thing that matters is what LeBron is doing. So
Yep.
that voice within kind of the Lakers fan base screaming that a trade needs to get done. And don't get me wrong, I think ultimately they probably do need to move on, if nothing else, just to clear the air because it's a mess. But um, there are those people. I think you have to factor in that there's people who don't value those picks at all because they don't care about what the future of the franchise is after LeBron James is gone. And certainly he's not still going to be with the team in
Mhm.
2029. So I think that's something that has to be considered when you look at what the general perception is from fans.
No, completely agree. Let me ask you a question about Russ.
Yeah.
Just in general, let's take the Lakers part of it out of it, because I don't think, even if you reached all the way into the deepest depths of your Laker fandom and homerness, there's no way you think Russ turns this around and becomes Russ again and becomes awesome, right?
Oh,
Like
no.
it's just not going to happen.
No.
So, because had that happen, right, then obviously then the Lakers are like, hey, he's Russ again, he's great, let's re-sign him. So let's just say this is where it is. At the end of this year, his contract expires. Does Russell Westbrook, after this contract expire, sign another NBA contract?
If we take these first 3 games and extrapolate that over the season, this is just what he is.
Either
Then
that or
then
let's say he's somewhere in between last year and this year. Somewhere in between.
I think the real question is what we're seeing right now, is the hamstring injury legit and that is somehow hindering him? Or is this just what he is right now? If this is just what he is, I would say no. I would say no, because what could you like I mentioned this on my show the other day. What would have happened if 4 years ago the Clippers had put Ivica Zubac on Russell Westbrook, or Yusuf Nurkic had been defending Russell Westbrook? What happens?
Yeah, backs it out and then he blows by him.
Yeah. I mean, it's utter destruction. You would never do that, right?
No.
Now teams
You were seeking that out, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were Russ's team, you were looking to draw that switch.
If that can't be overcome now, if that's where we're at, how do you? I don't know that you could have him out there, and that's where I wonder, a lot of it depends on, is he willing to be a role player and play limited minutes and all that kind of stuff. But if you're a team and you're seeing this happen and he can't overcome that, how do you have him on the floor?
Here's my thing with it too, because I'm with you. I don't think anybody can feel even remotely confident, even if you are Team X, that's like, yeah, we get a man, we can rehab him, we can figure it out. We'll find a way to turn him into a useful player.
Sure.
You cannot invest anything more than a veteran minimum contract. You can't even give him your room exception. If you're a cap space team, you can't give him part of your MLE. You can't say we're a cap space team and we're going to give him $5 million. You just can't. You can't. It's far too risky. And when I look at it and say to myself, let's put Russ's shoes on, I think he's going to be like, I'm not a minimum player. I'm not going to play for the minimum.
Yep.
I think this is a guy who he's made hundreds of thousands of dollars playing basketball. I think for him to, he's got a ton.
Millions, not thousands, millions.
That's what I meant to say. Hundreds of millions. Yeah.
He just bought a $37 million house near LeBron.
From LeBron, which is kind of funny too.
Yeah.
He's also a guy who obviously very clearly has a lot of outside interests. And that's not, I'm being in no way critical of that at all. I think these people are like, these guys should live and breathe basketball 24/7 is ridiculous. I think he would just say, I'm done. I'm not going to play. That's it. And I think Russell Westbrook becomes a guy who, basketball wise, he retires and that's it. We're not going to see him on TV. We're not going to see him do any of that stuff. We'll still see and hear from him because I think he's going to do like fashion stuff and he'll do stuff with other players. But I don't think he's going to pop up as an analyst.
He's not going to be on Inside the NBA or whatever.
No, I think it'll be, I'm retired, and basketball wise, I'm gone. Like, and you're never going to see me around anymore, until maybe he shows up in Oklahoma City, some kind of reunion thing.
Right.
That. Yeah, I struggle. And the comp I go to and look at a little bit is Derrick Rose, right? Derrick Rose, super duper star, had the big contract. There's a whole contract rule named after him, right? The Rose rule. And I look at it and say, now his was injury related, right? That's what caused his fall. It just, since we're on the topic, Woj just tweeting Russell Westbrook unlikely to play versus Nuggets tonight. And also tweeted Michael Porter Jr. is not going to play for Denver tonight as well.
Remains hopeful of a return versus the Timberwolves on Friday. There's also a report that's just popping up here. I'm seeing it. Grain of salt. Stephen A. Smith says he's expecting Russell Westbrook to come off the bench on Friday against the Timberwolves.
I think it's possible. I think it's certainly possible. Now, back to my Derrick Rose comp, right? Derrick Rose injury related, but then Derrick Rose reinvented himself as I'm going to be Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford. I'm going to come off the bench. I'm going to be a bench scorer. I'm going to do my things. I just don't think Russ has that in him and wants to. He also doesn't shoot the way Derrick Rose can. And Derrick Rose is by no means a knockdown sharpshooter, but he can shoot and will shoot, jumpers and do it well. So I struggle to see Russ reinventing himself, and I struggle to see anybody else saying there will be teams, of course, it'd be like, you want to play for the minimum and come in and be, a backup or maybe fight for a starting job? Sure, no problem. But I just, and then I think for him, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to take that kind of money and, moving on to whatever's next.
Yeah, there's a similar, and obviously there's a lot of parallels we can draw with these two players, but John Wall, there's a story out about him where he was talking about the situation with the Rockets, and this is coming from Sam Amick of The Athletic. I said that he was offered, but last year he went to Miami, and the Rockets contacted him and said, "Hey, we'll play you like 10 minutes a game. Some games you might not play, or you can just not play for the whole year, and we'll try to trade you."
Yep.
And those were the options he was given, and he went, "Yeah, I'm just not going to play that. I don't want to play 10 minutes a night and not play all that often." I could see Russell Westbrook making that same decision if a team comes to him and says, "Hey, we can use you off the bench. You're going to get 10 minutes as our backup point guard. Some nights we might not play you." Him just go, "Nah, not interested."
Exactly. Yeah, I just don't think that's where he's going to go. Yeah, I think it's going to be. That's why I think after this contract, no matter what happens, it's going to be thanks for the great time. See you later.
Yeah. Yep. Could happen. Unfortunate because he is one of the all-time greats, for sure. We see what he's done over the course of his career. All right. Well, let's wrap things up there. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Make sure you do subscribe to the NBA Front Office Show right here on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast version, follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Toss us a review and a 5-star rating as well, if you wouldn't mind. Love getting the reviews on the show. Really, really do appreciate them. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.